Last year, I reviewed the Riviera Line Exeter to Paynton add-on in TS Classic. I remember thinking it was decent for its time, but the scenery and route coverage, not to mention the quality of the included rolling stock, could certainly have been better. Not long after that original route, we got a steam-era version, and following a journey along part of the route in real life, I thought it was about time I looked at Riviera Line in the 50s to see how well it holds up in 2025. Dovetail Games released their Riviera Line in the 50s route in September 2015, originally as part of the TS 2016 package. These days, the route is available as a standalone add-on from Steam for a reasonable price of 24 New Zealand dollars. As for route coverage, it's a small improvement on the original Exeter to Paynton route, now extending for 35 miles from Exeter St David's to Kingswear, complete with branches to Heathfield and Brixham. In real life, the line is famous for its coastal scenery, particularly on the section between Star Cross and Teignmouth. The Dawlish sea wall may be my favourite spot on the line, but I also like the scenery around Torquay, where the terrain is quite hilly, and consequently, the railway is noticeably more steeply graded than it is between Exeter and Newton Abbot. On a personal note, I stayed in Torquay for 2 nights in late April 2025, and saw plenty of rail activity during that time. This was one of many cases where I couldn't quite believe that I was really in a place that I knew so well from over a decade of playing Train Simulator, with 2 major highlights being a round of train spotting at Dawlish on the 28th of April, and seeing a Class 57 at Newton Abbot on the next morning. Anyway, that's enough of me going on about my adventure in real life. Time to go back to discussing the TS Classic route. As for motive power, Riviera Line in the 50s includes a good selection of Great Western steamers, but they're all in British Railways liveries to match the time period of the route. The locomotives in question are the 4073 Castle, 6000 King, 6800 Grange, 6959 Modified Hall, and 5700 pannier tank classes. Only one of these locomotives, namely the Grange, was actually new to TS at the time, while the others had already appeared in previous add-ons. Case in point, the 5700 pannier tank, whose depiction in Riviera Line in the 50s is not a new model. Instead, it is essentially a modified version of the ancient model that comes with the Falmouth branch add-on of 2010. According to the manual, this particular variant of the Castle Class 460 is fitted with a 3-row superheater and Hawksworth tender, which I consider to be quite ugly, but the manual goes into comparatively less detail about the other 4 locomotives. I'm inclined to agree with what Flying Scott said in his review of this route, especially the part where he brought up the fluctuating quality amongst the quintet of GWR steamers. It doesn't take a genius to realise that the developers paid more attention to the castle than any of the other locomotives, And this makes me wonder why the silly sods from Chatham didn't bother putting in 100% effort for every single aspect of this DLC, especially given that it was released as one of their flagship routes. This depiction of the King Class 460 looked decent for his time, and I used to like driving the BR Blue variant, but the model is getting a bit long in the tooth now, and it's let down by the unrealistic empty space between the frames. If the castle could get fully animated inside valve gear, why was the same important detail not applied to the King as well? Another issue I have with the Kings and castles relates to the number and nameplates. For whatever reason, Dovetail didn't bother modelling the numbers and names for all members of their respective classes. As an aside, why is there a glitch with part of the ground missing here at Newton Abbot? I don't have a favourite locomotive from the default Exeter to Kingswear fleet, but I do have tied least favourites, namely the Grange and Modified Hall, although this is not because of 6803 and 7907's appearance in a certain series. Overpowered physics are the main reason why I don't like this rendition of the Grange, while the Modified Hall has all sorts of issues, such as the low-resolution textures, absence of a shed code plate on the smokebox door, while all the other engines in this pack do have the shed code plate, modelling that looked outdated even by 2015 standards, and the outline of the GW lettering still being clearly visible on the tender, when I thought this should have been patched over. Incidentally, I was lucky to see one Modified Hall in real life, namely 6998 Burton Agnes Hall at the Didcot Railway Centre. But as far as I know, the number and nameplates for 6998 were not modelled on the in-game locomotive. The liveries on all these locomotives, except the Modified Hall, were decent for their time, but are now looking quite dated, and I much prefer more recent depictions of BR green or black from developers like Caledonia Works and Precision Locomotive Developments. For example, here's BR green as it appears on the LNER A1/1 Pacific, with Major Cross for comparison. And here's BR black on the GWR 1361 class 060 saddle tank, as compared to the pannier tank from Exeter to Kingswear. As for why I've got that particular number on the 5700, it's because 7714 is another locomotive I've seen in real life. This was at Bridgenorth on the Severn Valley Railway. In the TS 2016 era, Dovetail did this bizarre TS rewards thing where you could get extra, and thankfully freeware, liveries or other additions for the 3 default routes, although I can't remember how you could obtain those rewards. We got the early GWR and BR era double chimney variants for the castle as part of this scheme, but I'm not sure if they're still available. In any case, they're largely obsolete now, following the arrival of a newer castle pack from Precision Locomotive Developments. This developer was originally known as Bossman Games. Whenever I revisit the Exeter to Kingswear route, I usually refrain from driving the default locomotives because they've all been superseded by newer, and much better, models from a trio of third-party developers. Victory Works included a new 5700 with their big pannier tank pack in January 2019, followed by Caledonia Works releasing a newly modelled King in May 2023. Then we got the Castle from PLD in December 2023, followed by the Halls and Modified Halls, also from PLD, in March 2025. As for the Grange, PLD's working on that one too, but his version hasn't been released yet at the time of uploading. Even though his engines can be harder to drive, I'm looking forward to his Grange pack, with one reason being that it will include 6880 Betton Grange, a locomotive I've wanted to see in TS Classic for a long time. Besides the 5 locomotives, Exeter to Kingswear also includes a decent selection of coaches and wagons, but a lot of it is reused from previous add-ons. The newly modelled stock included a GWR towed brake van, Hawksworth Centenary coaches, Collet Sunshine coaches, Bloater fish vans, and Siphon G, or in the case of a certain YouTuber, Siphon G Loves Trains, mail vans. As for other coaches and wagons, I think they were mostly reused from the Falmouth branch, but I could be wrong. For the longest time, my favourite from that newly modelled selection was the Collet Sunshine coaches, as opposed to the 10 cents coaches. But one thing I don't like about this lot is their tendency to impact my frame rates a little bit more than the Armstrong Powerhouse Mark I coaches. I've always considered the towed brake van from Exeter to Kingswear to be inferior to the older version from Victory Works' Small Prairie pack of December 2014. The Riviera version is only supplied in one livery, and you can't change the text on the side, so it's always saying Newton Abbot as opposed to something silly like You Are a Pirate, or in this case, M, pop music. Come to think of it, why are the towed Bloater and Siphon G only supplied in GWR liveries, when the route is set in the British Railways era? In the time since Riviera Line in the 50s was released, a large number of locomotive add-ons have been released with scenarios for the route. I own 8 of them, and if there are any others which I've likely forgotten about, then feel free to let me know what they are in the comments. The packs that I do have are as follows: the GWR County 460, GWR Heavy Freight Tanks, which comprises the 4200, 5205 and 7200 classes, GWR Large Prairies, GWR Pannier Tanks, GWR Saint, GWR Star, United States Army Transportation Corps S-160, and the Western Hydraulics, despite the Class 35, Class 42 and Class 52 all being too modern for the time period. The County 460, Heavy Freight Tanks, Large Prairies, Pannier Tanks, Saint and S-160 were all brought to TS by Victory Works, while Skyhook Games made the Star and the Western Hydraulics came from Dovetail. In saying that, I'm pretty sure the Hymech, Warship and Western are actually Iron Horse House rehashes, but I could be wrong. In any case, it's a shame that the Class 22 wasn't included in the pack. For the longest time, I haven't thought much of the scenery on Exeter to Kingswear, but now that I've seen part of the route in real life, specifically Dawlish Warren to Torquay, plus rounds of train spotting at Dawlish, Newton Abbot and Paignton, I consider the in-game scenery to be just as inconsistent as the quality of the included steam locomotives. Firstly, the station modelling is pretty good, although I don't have a favourite station out of those on this route. Meanwhile, this depiction of the ocean along the Dawlish sea wall is not good at all. Not only are the waves underwhelming, but you can clearly see distant land where there should be open sea. The buildings across the river from Kingswear station are pretty basic, to the point where there isn't even a depiction of Dartmouth station. Go figure. Elsewhere on the route, you'll come across little bits of floating track. Why this still hasn't been fixed is anyone's guess. There's also a missing arch on the viaduct just north of Churston, and the less said about this depiction of the land between Torquay station and the water, the better. I suppose one point in this route's favour is that it shows you what the Riviera Line was like before heavy rationalisation took place. These days, the yard at Newton Abbot is gone, and only 3 tracks remain at the station for passenger trains, with a car park now on the site previously used for the track on Platform 4. The in-game route also features 2 stations that are now closed in real life, namely Exminster and Kingswear, which both closed to passengers in 1964. The branch from Churston to Brixham is another section that no longer exists, as it closed in 1963. Perhaps one of the most notable features on this route is the working water troughs, although, ironically, I almost forgot to mention them in the review. In any case, the troughs are located around 1 mile south of Exminster station, and their presence is made known by these big white boards with a wavy black line across the middle. If the locomotive you're driving has a working water scoop, you can lower the scoop as you go over the troughs, but make sure to raise the scoop before getting to the end of the troughs, so as not to destroy the scoop, as opposed to the muck or lofty. Generally, I don't drive on Riviera Line in the 50s all that much, due to my preference for Western Lines of Scotland, West of England Main Line, and other steam-era routes, but I do like shuttling back and forth on the Brixham branch from time to time, especially with the 1400 class 042 tank and an auto coach, although you could also use the steam rail motor on this branch. When it comes to frame rates, the route's performance is pretty inconsistent, especially in a scenario that uses lots of the default rolling stock. Throughout the production of this video, the frame rate was averaging between 30 and 50 frames per second, sometimes dipping below 30 depending on how much rolling stock I'd placed down. At the end of the day, I'm not sure if I can recommend the Riviera Line in the 50s add-on to other TS Classic players. I remember really enjoying this route when it was brand new, but over the years, the experience here has been hindered by the fluctuating quality of the included steam locomotives, not to mention the inconsistent scenery details and frame rates. I'd love to see a remastered version of this route someday, preferably done to the same standard as the West of England Main Line by Golden Age Developments, but as it stands now, I think the default Riviera Line of the 50s route deserves a 5 out of 10. And if you've stuck around to the end of the video, you win tickets to a concert put on by the man who wrote Born in the USA, only he's now obsessed with absurdly large water-based aircraft, and his band have taken a liking to dead memes. It's Spruce Ghost Bruce Springsteen and the Markiplier E Street Band.